Hello, I welcome everyone to this week's training. So for this week, we'll be looking at color theory, how color is being applied in design, and how to use color properly. So what is color theory? Color theory basically communicates emotion, contrast, and control. And there is a visual example here by the right. And the credit is for Team Nigeria got at Design Notepad on X. As you can see, this design here communicates authority, looking at the image here, and the use of color that aligns well with the image also explain how color theory is being used in practical application of design. So what is color? Color is not decoration. Color is a medium of connection and communication in design. In essence, color helps you to communicate emotions, and it helps you to connect with your target audience using the right color that you want, using the right color and that makes them to feel how you want them to feel. And there's a visual example here by the right. The credit here goes to Niyo Kewu on X. It says here, for the love of football. And looking at this green is like a literal representation of the field, the football pitch, which is mostly green in most cases. And there's also a ball here, icon here at the down section of the design. So color is being used here to communicate the love of football. So anybody that is very interested in football, when they see this kind of design, for example, they can easily connect to it. And this is because of the right application of color, which was applied by the designer. So we have primary colors in design, and primary colors are the foundation of all other colors. Primary colors are the foundation of all other colors. And the primary colors in design are red, blue, and yellow. And you cannot create these colors by mixing other colors. No, it's not possible. So these colors are the foundation. They are the foundation from which all other colors are being made. I put a visual example here by the right. This is a blue circle, a red circle, and a yellow circle. And we also have secondary colors. Secondary colors are created by mixing primary colors. Secondary colors are created by mixing primary colors. And red plus blue will give us purple. Blue plus yellow will give us green. Yellow plus red will give us orange. So when you mix red and blue, it's going to give you purple, which is a secondary color. Blue and yellow will give you green, which is also a secondary color. Yellow plus red is going to give you orange, which is a secondary color. And when you combine when you combine primary colors, you get secondary colors. And the reason why we have secondary colors is to allow variation. So when we have secondary colors, it allows us to experiment with other colors and create design using other colors. And I put a visual example here by the right to help us understand it better. So we also have tertiary colors. Tertiary colors are created when you mix a primary color with a secondary color. And I put some example here. Red plus orange will give us red orange. Blue plus green will give us blue green. And yellow plus green will give us yellow green. And tertiary colors have official name like red orange, but in traditional terms, we can think of red plus orange as reddish orange, or blue and green as bluish green. And this depends on which color is stronger in that mix. So in a case where red and orange is being mixed and red is the dominant, we can say reddish orange. And I also put a visual example here by the right. So to recap, tertiary colors are created when you mix a primary color with a secondary color. So why does color matter in design? Why does color matter in design? Color affects attention, emotion, trust, readability, and brand perception. And starting with attention, color helps our audience it helps us to quickly grab the attention of our audience. And in terms of emotion, using the right colors can help our readers or viewers of the design to connect emotionally with the design. And color also can build trust for brands and businesses. When they use the right color, it helps people to trust. It helps to convey trust, and it makes it easy for people to trust that brand. And color also affects readability. Using the right colors and using the right contrast will ensure that the text is properly read. And in terms of brand perception, color affects how a brand is being perceived. It affects the overall or the overall values that people associate with a brand, an individual, or a business. So we have some problems when it comes to color, use of color, and there are a few here. It is wrong to pick colors randomly. You can't just decide to just pick colors like blue, yellow, orange, and decide to use everything together in your design. And it is also wrong to copy trends. In design, trends will always come, but it's just best to stick with what is essential and important for your design. And it's also wrong to overload your design. When you overload your design with a lot of color, you won't achieve a good result. So this is what happens when you make some mistake, when you apply color wrongly, and this will lead to confusion and lack of visual unity. As we can see in this flyer by the right, it's hard to make a sense of what this person is trying to communicate to us. And this is what happens when you apply color wrongly in your design. So for this we have the main color, meaning and emotion. Color, meaning and emotion. What is color psychology? Now, colors influence how people feel about what they see. It influences how people feel about what they see. And there's a visual example here by the right. We can see some ropes here in this image. And looking at this, the most prominent color here to me is this orange color. To someone it may be red, to someone it may be yellow, based on their preference for colors. And that's why I said colors influence how people feel about what they see. And the funny thing is that the same person wearing this orange, if you ask this person to wear red, the person will be perceived differently by someone that is evaluating their dress style and all, because of the change in color. And looking at this, we would have seen some example of some monarchs that prominent monarchs that likes to wear this kind of orange color style of dress, orange color, because it signifies authority. It conveys a kind of, it helps people to easily notice them among crowds. And so monarchs like to wear white because white means purity. It's also a symbol of authority and a symbol of distinction. So colors influence how people feel about what they see. And now I'm going to be explaining some colors here. We have red. Red means urgency. It can also mean danger, passion, and it also attracts attention. And looking at this visual example here by the right, this design is credited to Obashola Onex, one of the prominent designers on Twitter. So looking at this design, we can easily see that this red background here, it points our attention to the main character in this poster. So in this case, red is serving the purpose of attention. It's creating attention. It drags our attention to this poster. Like, we will be interested in knowing who this character in this poster is because of the right application of color, which in this case is red. And we also have blue. Blue means trust. It can mean being calm. It can mean a sense of professionalism, and it can also signify stability. And there's a visual example here by the right. This is Carrywise, one of the prominent fintech brands in Nigeria. And using this blue color has really helped them it has really helped their customer base to connect with them and trust them that their money is safe with them. We also have yellow. Yellow can mean energy, optimism. It can also attract attention, and it can also mean caution. And there's a visual example here by the right. This is for Souffle on X. So they deal with crypto stuff and the likes. And Yellow here being used by software, it helps them to easily get attention. Like when you are scrolling online or something and you see this kind of post, you will want to like know more about what is in the design because of the use of color yellow here. So in this case, yellow helps this brand to easily get attention. And we also have green. Green can mean energy, optimism, attention, caution. And in this case, we are all familiar with OPay, one of the also popular fintech brands in Nigeria. So OPay helps us to keep our money safe. So here in this case, green here also communicates attention, because looking at this simple flyer here, you can easily see what is being read. Did you know, blah blah blah, and the image here, it gets our attention easily. So we also have black, and black can mean luxury, power, seriousness, or elegance. And this is a visual attributed to Chanel on X. One of their prominent colors is black, white, and other colors. And black here is being used to communicate luxury in their design, in their visual identities and design. So black here explains luxury. We also have white, and white means simplicity, cleanliness, minimalism, or space. And also, the visual example here is also attributed to Chanel on X. And looking at this visual here, it is a very simple and minimalist design based on the style of Chanel. So color is context dependent. We can have the same color but different meaning depending on the use. Can have the same color but different meaning depending on the use. And an example here is red in warning sign versus red in fashion ad. The red here in this first visual is a warning sign explaining caution, that is telling us to stay away from harm or stay away from danger. While the same red here is being used in a fashion advertisement to connote a sense of luxury, because here we can see the Vogue here. So, and the lady in the picture here, you can easily connect with it that this is a fashion ad. And what do we mean by good color intent? For good color intent, color must match message. Like your color must match the message you are trying to communicate for everything to really align. And when it comes to when you are trying to connote a sense of urgency, you go with color red. When you are trying to explain a sense of calmness, you go with the color blue. And when you are working for luxury brands, you can always go with black or gold. And we also have warm versus cool colors. And warm examples of warm colors are red, orange, and yellow. And for cool colors, we have blue, green, and purple. And there's also visual depth that comes with color. For warm colors feel closer, and they are best used as foreground colors. And in terms of cool colors, sometimes they feel distant, and they are best used as background color. And what do we understand by contrast and readability? In some of the previous videos, we've discussed contrast at a length. So, and I'm taking this again. What is contrast? Contrast is the difference or variation between elements. And without contrast, our text will become unreadable, hierarchy disappears, and focus is lost. So contrast helps us to make our text readable. It helps us to ensure hierarchy, and it helps our audience to focus on what is important in the design. And we have types of color contrast here: light versus dark, complementary colors, and saturation contrast. And for light versus dark, there's an example here: light versus dark, black text on white, that is a light contrast. And for dark contrast, gray on gray, like a dark text on a dark background, gray color also on a gray color, this is a dark contrast. And we also have complementary colors. These are colors that are on the opposite sides of the color wheel. This is an example of a color wheel. And looking at this, we can see that blue is opposite orange, red is opposite green. So complementary colors are colors that are on the opposite sides of the color wheel. And the reason why we call them complementary colors is not only because of the position, it's because most time they always complement each other, meaning they go well with each other when used together on a piece of design. And there's something we have to discuss here when it comes to color, which is accessibility basics. What is accessibility in design? Accessibility means that design should be readable for everyone. Design should be readable for everyone. And why does this matter? The reason why it matters is that poor contrast can make text look invisible for many users, and they will be unable to read our text. And there's also the issue of color blindness. Certain color combos are problematic, like when you use some particular colors that are not really dark and are not really complementing each other, it can cause confusion for the readers. And there's a simple rule that we can always go by. If it is too hard for you to read, then it is what's worse for others. If you as a designer, you can hardly read it is on your design, then it's going to be probably worse for someone who is probably, let's say, probably visually impaired. It's going to be a bit difficult for them to read your design. And for safe practices, don't always rely on color alone. Then I recommend that you use text and shape and contrast to ensure accessibility and make sure that your design is readable by everyone. We also have the rainbow design problem, which I put here. The rainbow design problem is when you use too many unrelated colors. And we are all familiar with the concept of a rainbow. A rainbow has a lot of colors. And when you use too many unrelated colors in design, that is a rainbow design problem. Why does this happen? Most beginners think that like the more colors you used, then the more colors you use, the more creativity you'll be able to achieve with your design. No, this is very wrong. Like we often many designers, including me when I was starting out, believe that like you have to use a lot of colors so that your design will look colorful and people will say you are a great designer. No, the reality with color is that more colors can actually cause less clarity. So most times it's best to just stick with a few colors for your design, a few colors that complement each other and is effective for your design. And why does this rainbow design problem, what does it cause? The effect is that no focus on your design, no hierarchy, and it can also cause visual fatigue for your audience or someone that is going through your design. When there's no focus on your design, there's no hierarchy, and there's a lot of visual fatigue. Looking at this image, this poster by the right, we can see that everything is just being used randomly, a lot of colors that we can hardly make a sense of. So best practices for use of colors: it is best that we limit our palette to one primary color, one secondary color, and we can also make use of neutrals. Neutral colors are, example, black and white. Neutral colors are colors that cannot be found on the color wheel, but are also part of the colors that can be used in design. And there's a visual example here by the right, where the neutral colors were mostly used. Looking at this, we can see the use of black, the white background, and the use of black color for the text. So, and that brings us to the end of this week's training. And our assignment for this week is just for the first assignment, design a simple flyer for a hospital using the tagline "We Care, God Heals," using appropriate colors based on your understanding of this week's training on color. And secondly, use a corresponding image to enhance the design in the first assignment. So for the second assignment, you are basically expected to use an image that explains this tagline "We Care, God Heals." So you can make use of a nurse that is holding a book or something that it is related to the tagline.